In the bustling town of Owerri, beneath the sweltering sun and among the red earth roads, Victory Spring Secondary School stood a place of dreams, heartbreak, and whispers that never faded. In this school lived a girl named Isioma. She walked like a shadow between laughter and scorn. She was 16, tall for her age, with legs as slim as matchsticks and wrists so narrow they looked like they could snap in the wind. Every morning, she wore her neatly ironed uniform, her socks pulled up, and her shoes polished till they shone. But no amount of neatness could hide what they always mocked her for. In the same school there lived three best friends. They were the golden girls of SS2B, Amarachi, Uju, and Ngozi. Hair always in the trendier styles, nails polished on weekends, perfume floating around them like halos of popularity. They always mocked and bullied Isioma for her look, and this made everyone in school to laugh at her wherever she passed. Skeleton, Amarachi would call her loud enough for half the class to hear. Do you eat at all, or you don't have food in your house, or are you fasting for the whole country? Chimed in Uju, eyes rolling. Omo, if breeze blow now, you go fly, Ngozi would laugh, high-pitched and cruel. Isioma, on the other hand, kept her hair low and lips quiet. She sat at the back of the class. Alone. Always alone. She never fought back. She never told anyone. Not the teachers. Not her mother, who worked long hours at the market selling fried yam and plantain. Not even her little brother, who sometimes stared at her and asked why she always looked so tired. She still went back to school every day, scared of what she would face from the Golden Girls. The morning bell rang at Victory Spring Secondary School. Isioma adjusted her torn sandals, her uniform, faded and 2 inches too short, flapped in the breeze. She slipped into the classroom quietly, hoping not to draw attention. But it was too late. The 3 girls were already waiting. Amarachi, Uju, and Ngozi, the queens of SS2B. They turned at once when Isioma entered, laughing. Look who the wind dragged in, Amarachi said, laughing as Uju added, somebody, please buy her food, she need it. The class burst into laughter. Isioma sat in the last row, swallowing her tears. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since yesterday. Her poor mother, who sells fried yam by the roadside, had nothing to give before she left for school. In the girls' toilet, Isioma looked at her reflection. Gaunt face. Cracked lips. Her skinny hands. Maybe they're right, she whispered. Maybe I don't belong here. But then she remembered her father's words before he died, you are fire, Isioma. Even when you are small, you can still burn down mountains. That night, Isioma cried into her pillow. But as dawn broke, something shifted. She made a decision, they would never laugh at her again. But every word cut her. Every laugh buried something inside her. And it stayed buried. Until one day, it didn't. That morning, as she walked into school, Isioma heard them again. Uju pointed at her legs and whispered something, and they all burst out laughing. Something inside her clenched, broke, and then shifted. That night, Isioma stood in front of the small cracked mirror in their one-room home. Her eyes stared back, dark and hollow with something new. She touched her cheekbone, sharp like glass, and whispered to herself, they will not forget me. She tried to eat a lot of food at home so she can get fat but didn't work. She was breaking down, she felt like not going to school again. To avoid the cruel words of her classmate, Isioma stopped eating with joy. Now, every spoonful of rice or morsel of yam was a desperate prayer. She begged her body to change. She tried adding milk to her gari, ate late at night, drank soda before bed. Everything she read or heard could make her gain weight. But her bones betrayed her. Her wrists stayed thin. Her shoulders still looked like hangers. One Saturday morning, her mother caught her crying into a bowl of beans. Isioma, what is it? She quickly wiped her tears and forced a smile. Nothing, Mama. Just pepper entered my eyes. Mama sighed. She was too tired to press. Between the young buyers who haggled like they had no conscience and the landlord threatening to increase rent, there was no room for deeper questions. By Monday, Isioma had made up her mind. She would not go to school. She sat in the corner of the room, her uniform folded beside her, her bag untouched. But Mama didn't even notice. She had rushed out early to beat the market traffic. That day, the silence in the house echoed loudly. Her little brother had gone to school, and all that remained was the old ticking wall clock and the faint noise of a distant generator. Isioma lay on the thin mattress and stared at the zinc ceiling, feeling like a ghost trapped in the body of a girl no one saw. But something unexpected happened that afternoon. A soft knock came on the door. Then again, louder. She hesitated, then opened it slowly. It was Chibuzo, the boy who sat near the window in SS2B. He barely spoke in class, always doodling cars in his notebook. He looked awkward, standing there, holding a crumpled piece of paper. "I saw you weren't in school," he said, eyes avoiding hers. "So I brought the notes for today. Chemistry and English." Isioma blinked, unsure what to say. No one had ever done that for her before. He looked up, just once, and said, "By the way, those girls. Don't mind them. They laugh too loud to hide how small they are inside." He handed her the notes and walked away. Isioma stood in the doorway long after he left, something warm bubbling up inside her chest. It wasn't happiness. It was strength. Tiny. Quiet. But real. That night, she stood in front of the mirror again. Her face was the same. Her bones still sharp. But her eyes held fire. "They may not see me now, but one day, they will wish they had." The next morning, she wore her uniform like armor. She polished her shoes until they could blind the sun. And as she walked back into Victory Secondary School, she did not walk like a shadow anymore. She walked like someone who was done hiding. Isioma returned to school with a new silence, not the shy, invisible quiet she used to wear, but something colder, harder. Her eyes no longer darted away from Amarachi, Uju, and Ngozi. Instead, she stared at them. Long, unblinking. It made them uncomfortable. But they laughed it off. "She won't try Chris now," Uju scoffed. "Let her keep staring. Maybe that's the only thing her skinny self can do," Ngozi added. What they didn't know was that Isioma had changed. Deep inside, something had cracked open. She was tired of swallowing pain. Tired of shrinking. She didn't want pity or kindness anymore. She wanted them to feel what she had felt: humiliation, isolation, shame. Then she started plotting. It began subtly. One day, Amarachi's crush Toby, the school's basketball star, received an anonymous note with truths about her. That she wore padded bra. That her perfect Instagram life was all lies. A photoshopped screenshot followed the next week, showing Amarachi begging him for attention. It spread like wildfire. By the end of the day, Amarachi had locked herself in the girls' toilet crying. Then came Uju. Her mathematics answer sheet mysteriously disappeared on the day of the midterm test. She swore she had it in her bag, but it was gone. When she begged the teacher for mercy, she was met with sternness and suspicion. So brilliant, Uju forgot her paper. Her grades plummeted. And so did her confidence. Ngozi wasn't spared. A fake Facebook profile popped up, using her name and photos once she had sent privately to someone she trusted. Rumors started, boys jeered, and even teachers whispered. The shame broke her like a twig. Behind all of this was Isioma. Quiet. Calculating. She had spent nights learning how to make fake profiles, how to use public Wi-Fi to avoid detection, how to manipulate. Her intelligence became her weapon. She didn't need to touch them. Her revenge was silent and cruel. People started noticing her more. That quiet girl Isioma, she's different now. Chibuzo, who once brought her notes, looked at her with concern. Are you okay? He asked one afternoon. She smiled at him, but her eyes didn't. I'm fine, she said. But she wasn't. Because the revenge didn't heal her. Each act gave her a brief high, a flicker of power, but afterwards, the emptiness returned. Darker. Heavier. And now, guilt began to whisper. One morning, she walked past Amarachi in the hallway. The once glowing girl looked pale and small. Her eyes met Isioma's, and she didn't even have the energy to scowl. She just looked defeated. That night, Isioma lay awake, staring at the ceiling again. But this time, she wasn't angry. She was afraid. She had won. But at what cost? And in the quiet darkness, she whispered to herself, what have I become? The days blurred into each other, and Sacred Heart Secondary School no longer felt like a battlefield, it felt like a graveyard. Laughter had thinned. Whispers now carried fear. The golden girls of SS2B had become shadows of themselves, and everyone noticed. But no one suspected Isioma. She sat in class, her pen moving neatly over her notes, her face calm. Too calm. Even the teachers began to sense it, how she seemed older now, how her eyes watched everything like she was waiting for the world to pay for something. At home, her little brother noticed it too. She no longer played with him. She no longer smiled. Her mother was too exhausted to ask questions, but even she paused one evening, watching Isioma quietly from the corner of the room. Isioma, she said softly, your eyes have changed. I'm fine, Mama, Isioma replied, turning away. But she wasn't. The darkness had seeped into her. And once it entered, it didn't want to leave. That week, something unexpected happened. Chibuzo stopped coming to school. At first, she didn't care. But by the third day, a strange panic began to rise inside her. The one person who had seen her, who had offered kindness when she was invisible, had vanished without a word. She went to the class teacher. Chibuzo's father was transferred, the teacher said. They left suddenly. No goodbye. A sharp ache stabbed Isioma's chest. She hadn't even thanked him. And now, he was gone. That night, the guilt broke through. She sat by the window, her knees tucked under her chin, trembling. The fake profiles. The lies. The notes. She remembered each cruel thing she had done. Not to strangers, but to girls who, yes, were mean but were also just teenagers, just like her. She imagined Amarachi crying in the toilet, Uju being called to the principal's office for cheating she didn't commit, Ngozi pretending she was sick to avoid the stairs. Her revenge had destroyed them. But it hadn't healed her. It had only created a version of her she could barely recognize. The next day at school, she did something no one expected. She walked straight to Amarachi, Uju, and Ngozi during lunch. The cafeteria went quiet. They stared at her, confused. Cautious. Ready to lash out. But she didn't insult them. She didn't sneer. She bowed her head slightly and whispered, I'm sorry. At first, they laughed. A tired, mocking laugh. But then they saw her face. And for the first time, Isioma looked like the girl they had never bothered to understand, wounded, human, real. She didn't explain. She didn't justify. She just walked away. Healing didn't happen overnight. The scars on both sides ran deep. But slowly, something began to shift. The next week, Uju offered her a pencil in class. Ngozi asked for her help with chemistry. Amarachi still avoided her, but no longer hissed when she walked by. And Isioma. She started writing. Not fake notes. But a journal. She poured everything into it, the pain, the guilt, the silence, the power, and the darkness. It became her therapy. Her mirror. Her truth. Years later, that journal would become a published book titled Skin and Shadows. It would tell the story of a girl made invisible by the world until she chose to rise. And through that story, she would teach thousands that cruelty can destroy, but compassion, even for oneself, can heal. And finally Isioma was seen.